Hello everyone, my name is Ian here. I'm joining you today from Auburn, Alabama, and I'm here on behalf of UDA Technologies, makers of the UDA ConstructionSuite system. This is what I've got up right now on the screen, and I'll be taking you guys through this today. And as we do dive into ConstructionSuite and take a look through the system, I'd love to have any of the questions come up as we're going through the series, so keep an eye on that questions panel, guys. Send those over to me as they come up. It does look like we've got a great blend of viewers today, some residential builders, looks like we've got some new construction in there, some commercial builders, we've got a couple of specialty contractors as well. So I'm not going to go down the path of one specific type of construction. I'm going to just try to keep it as broad as possible. Don't forget, guys, if you ever need to reach out to us, you can always contact us directly by phone or email. I'll talk about how you guys can do that later. For now, let's go ahead and dive in and get started. So here we're looking at the UDA ConstructionSuite system. And in ConstructionSuite, when you first get into the system, you should be able to see the main dashboard. That's it, what we're looking at right now. And on this screen, on the left-hand side, you'll see the navigation panel taking you through all the major features within ConstructionSuite, like estimating, scheduling, contracts and docs, projects, leads, and so on. Along the top, you'll see different tabs within each of these sections to skip into very, very specified pieces. In the Today screen, for example, the dashboard just gives you a broad overview for how we're doing within all these different projects. We've got a project profitability, there's a cost breakdown across all jobs, you can see the lead pipeline and all the open change orders that we have here. If you move across these tabs, the summary is going to give you all of our recent activity, what we've been working on most recently here. The activity history is going to show what we've already done. So everything that we've completed, everything that's been accomplished, that's going to show up here in the activity history section. Correspondence overview is going to be the area for those commercial users out there to take a look at submittals, RFIs, correspondence in that nature. Transmittals will be in there as well. And then for those of you who are using the corporate or developer versions of ConstructionSuite and above, you'll have an overview for the company, which just shows you guys where you stand on all your jobs. Some of this information can also flow into the work in progress, or the WIP report, that we build in ConstructionSuite as well, which this is designed to show you your gross profitability across all your jobs and how those numbers kind of dance as you're importing or manipulating your actual costs and your committed costs and things like that. So obviously this goal is to keep our profitability high, and on this particular WIP report you'll be able to see where the profitability stands at any time for all of your projects that are ongoing right now. Our goal with this particular report, and we'll dive into this one a little bit more on Wednesday, but our goal for this report is to make sure that you can catch in real time if you start to slip on any of your jobs, and then you can take corrective action before that job is over so that you can make up any lost ground. Now, of course, all this information is coming from the various different projects and opportunities that you've got in the ConstructionSuite system. And those projects and opportunities you'll actually find over on the left-hand side in the areas marked projects and, of course, opportunities as well. Now, the questions come up a lot. What's the difference between our projects and opportunities? And ultimately, the big thing is a signed contract. Up until the point in your project's life cycle where you get that signed contract, everything's going to be considered an opportunity, and opportunities are going to be withheld from a lot of those reports, like the WIP report and other documents and things like that. Your opportunities are still treated as projects for all intents and purposes within the ConstructionSuite software, and so if you go to the Opportunities tab, you'll see a project pipeline along the top. Here we've got all the different opportunity statuses, and you'll see the basic details here for the opportunities as well. Each of the job names is going to be here on the left-hand side, and as you move across, you'll have all sorts of additional information in here for contacts, for project types, for phone numbers, base estimates, things like that. On the projects tab itself, if you flip back up to this one, again, similar things. You've got all your job names over here on the left-hand side. You'll have project numbers, types, clients, addresses, everything like that. We've also got a very similar project stage, which is very similar to the opportunity status. Now, each of these options here at the top are actually going to be sortable fields. If at any time you decide that you wanted to filter down to all of your jobs that are in progress, you could just click on the in progress filter and it would take you to each of those jobs. In my case, it looks like I don't have very many of them organized, so you may want to go in and right click and edit some of these projects to assign them to the correct project stage. Now you'll find me going through and doing this very regularly. The right-click menu is going to be your best utility for finding the tools that you need in order to accomplish any given task that you guys are working on. So if you're looking at something like editing a project information to assign it to the correct project field, right-click on it, you should find your menu there. So again, just the quickest of tools when you're looking at your opportunities and your projects. Opportunities are where most of your jobs will start. When you get a signed contract, they go from being an opportunity to a project, and you can actually set that back on the Opportunities tab just by right-clicking on it and setting the opportunity status to Closed Won. Closed Won would indicate a project that is now, or an opportunity that is now moving into the project portion. We've got that signed contract, we've got all the information for it, and you're ready to move forward. It's not going to necessarily fall out of this list right away. You'll still be able to see all of the different opportunities, regardless of whether they're inactive or won or lost or anything like that. All of these opportunities are going to stay put so that you can get great reports out of this system from some of the tools that you guys have up here at the top. So the reporting capabilities are going to be live, and you'll be able to report based on all opportunities, whether or not they're ongoing or if they've been won or lost. But in this case, you're not going to lose the chance to get valuable information from the opportunities. Now, the opportunity to project relationship is somewhat similar to the relationship that you'll see between leads and clients, although you'll find the leads in the leads list and the clients are going to be buried in the contacts list, which is a little bit more expansive. But the big difference between them is lead is going to be your ability to nurture a relationship with a person or potential client, whereas the opportunity is nurturing or pushing along the job prospect. Now, this might be a subtle difference for some of you guys. If you ever do any kind of new residential construction, your lead might be your opportunity. But for those of you who have repeat customers or you work for large commercial organizations that might call upon you to build out several different projects, we've got one client that builds Altas, and because they do this, they'll go through and get the call from the home office to take a look at another project, and they all of these opportunities filter through this one lead, which would be the Alta home office. In my case, you might find some additional ones in here, like we've got Hyatt Regional. They're going to be the primary for any of these projects that we might be working on, so they'll show up as a lead. We might have already won this lead, but the lead can be a source for additional opportunities as well, which is why we'll keep them in this list and have them show up in our lead reports and things like that again as we move forward. Now, of course, at any given time, these leads that you're looking at here in your lead list should also appear back in the contacts list as well. But the contacts list, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be much more all-encompassing. Our contacts list is going to be the full source of all contacts that we work with as tradespeople, as specialty contractors. We've got lenders and subs and electricians and everything like that you'll see in the list. We've also got leads and clients and past clients in this list. We've got bankers, we've got architects and engineers, basically anybody that you might work with in a business sense. They'll show up here in the contacts list, and same as before, you can go through and organize them by contact group, and you'll find all the different contact groups along the top. And the same way as before, you can always just click on one of the contact groups and it'll limit that list to everybody that fits that group. So in this case, I've limited it to the leads, and it's going to look almost exactly the same as the lead list itself. The difference is at any given point I could switch over to lenders perhaps, or electricians, or we could scroll a little bit to the left-hand side and find our suppliers, maybe. Ultimately, all the different contacts are going to be here in the contacts list, and at any given point, same as before, if you guys had some adjustments that you wanted to make, you notice that Home Depot's main office doesn't have address information, you can always right-click on one of these contacts and edit the contact to change some of the base details within that. Now we've gone through and taken a look at some of these, the projects, the contacts, the leads, the opportunities. What you'll notice is common between them is they all have this kind of tabled layout in ConstructionSuite. And on this tabled screen, you're going to see important information, in this case for the contacts, like phone numbers and company names and addresses and email address and things like that. But this information is very adjustable, and it's adjustable on a user-by-user basis. So if you guys do want to customize this a little bit for everybody who's going to be working within the system, the first thing that you need to do is create the additional users. Now you can do this by going up to the menus at the very top. You've got a new menu, data, reports, tools, and help. Now some of these are very straightforward. If you go to the data menu, This is going to be doing things like creating data backups or syncing your information between ConstructionSuite and Outlook, perhaps, so that you can pull in all the contacts that you guys have in Outlook, and that's going to be available to you through the Sync Center. The Reports tab, again, very straightforward. If you want to run a report like a proposal from your estimates, you can come under Estimating Reports, and there's going to be proposals available to you there. You'll also be able to do things like under the Tools menu, which is the important one here, you can go to the Company and User Configuration section, and under User Config, you can add in new users for anybody who you're going to have using the system. Now, when you're setting up the new users in ConstructionSuite, you're going to have two basic types of users. You're going to have the system administrator, like myself, and the ConstructionSuite administrator is going to have the username and password. For me, it's just my name, my first name, Ian. For a lot of you, though, you're going to be setting it up as the email address, and the password is going to be the same password that you might use for your ConstructionOnline accounts. So that email and password will allow you to get into ConstructionSuite and into ConstructionOnline and into the mobile apps and everything else. It's one unified username and password, and you'll be able to set them up for new users here in this list. Now, I mentioned that there's two kinds of users because I've set myself up as the administrator. Of course, I'm going to be doing most of the configuration here today, and as such, I am defaulted to the administrator user type, but you can also set up regular users as well. So if we were to put in a new user and we just wanted to set up this new user as just a standard run-of-the-mill user, you could set them up here as well. Again, ConstructionOnline username, which would be the email address that you're using for everything. The password is the same thing. And then in this section, you could set them up as a regular user, which limits their ability to do a lot of things in ConstructionSuite, like create new users. For example, only an administrator in ConstructionSuite can create new users. Regular users do not have the option to edit a lot of the templates that you have in ConstructionSuite either. So if you've got somebody who just needs to get into and work with the existing information, regular user is the easy way to do it. Admin would be able to go in and manipulate the templates to add letterheads and logos and change the formatting for your proposals and add a lot of additional verbiage and things like that. So you'll be able to set up that information in here as well. And once again, that's always going to be under the Tools menu, Configuration, and the User Configuration. Now, the company configuration is really handy as well because this is where you can put in and you can open up this little section and put in some additional information for company address and additional custom details and fields. You'll also be able to set up an outgoing email service for ConstructionSuite to use if you ever wanted to link it to something other than the outgoing UDA email settings. So if you just go with the default UDA email settings, you'll be able to see that information here, and you can use just our outgoing system. All the emails would say that they're from UDA Technologies on behalf of Ian Schaefer, perhaps. If you use your own custom email settings, you'll be putting in the same outgoing email server settings, like smtp.gmail.com. You'll be putting this information in, and it should always match the same outgoing server that you might use through Outlook. If you're using Gmail, they're going to be very similar to these settings. Yahoo could be from them as well. Each of your different email providers would be able to give you this information. All you have to do is come populate the information here, and you'll be all set. Now, this, of course, involves configuring the system to use your correct company information, pardon me, guys, and your correct user information. It's an important distinction to make as well because your users will be able to send out emails, and the emails that they're sending are going to use their email address. The system is going to be sending out other emails, maybe automated reminders or something like that, and they'll be coming from the company's email settings. In this case, you might have seen that I had a Gmail account set up. They might come from ian.schaefer@gmail.com as opposed to my personal setting, which might be ischaefer@uda1.com. So it's an important distinction to make, especially for all of your salespeople who are going to be sending out a lot of emails from the system. But that at least gets everything set up. So we touched on that one. We now have users in ConstructionSuite, and now we were talking about the user-specific views. So I'm logged in as myself right now, of course. We're logged in as Ian, and my view starts with the contact's display name on the left-hand side. And then we move into things like first name, last name, email address, and telephone. Now, if I wanted to reorganize these for some reason, let's say I wanted the company name to be next after the contact name, you can always left-click and hold on any of these column headers and shift them over to the left, or right for that matter. But you can see where it's got the two little black arrows that show you where it's going to insert this field that you're moving around. So dragging it and dropping it into some other place is going to be a really useful tool to get the information in the correct location for you. And this way, when you pull the information together, you can always export it as an Excel file if you wanted to pull a report for this, or it's just going to show you your most important information at the far left side. Again, salespeople might keep all of the contact information over here on the far left. First name for the person we're talking to, the email address, the phone number, stuff like that. Other people, like if you're putting together an estimate and you just need to know what kind of companies you're working with, maybe that's a little bit further on the left-hand side or something like that. Everybody gets their own view, though, so you can go with what you're comfortable. And before I dive into the specific details for the contact, I just wanted to touch on one of these questions that we got. What do the numbers mean in the contact groups? So that was one of the questions from somebody viewing in here, and there's going to be one of two numbers that you might be talking about. The first and easier of the two is going to be available underneath the contacts sortable bubble here, and that's just representing the number of people that show up within that contact group. So suppliers, I've got 9 suppliers in there, so if we filter by suppliers, you'll see 9 different people in the list. That one's the obvious one. The other possibility is over here on the right-hand side, where we've got 01.650.0-architect. This is a kind of a grouping or numbering scheme that I've worked with some of our clients in the past on. This is just an easy way to kind of fit them into a divisional structure, so that if I'm working with the CSI 16 divisions and I'm working in Division 1, which is general requirements, I know that my architects are typically going to fall under Division 1, Section 650. So in that case, I could always just filter it down to 01.650 and find all the architects that we might be working with. This is a personal preference, and you guys can name your groups however you like as well. And in fact, you can make a lot of the changes to your groups just by clicking on this little gear in the top right corner of this screen. This allows you to get into and change around all the different contacts groups that are going to be available in the system and visible at any time. You can always come in here and uncheck various different contact groups if you don't want to show them, or you can click on one and select the edit option to make changes to the images, to the names for those, or whatever you like. Now that's broad information for organizing tons of different contacts or projects or opportunities or leads, whatever it might be that you guys have in the system. For more specific information on an individual or for a company, you can always click on the contact's name here, and it'll take you to an overview, in this case, for this specific company, McGee Supply Company. So McGee right now has no projects that they're assigned to, at least no visible projects right now, but they do have a couple of tasks that they're working on for me. No to-dos, they're not a lead, this is one of my suppliers, and you can see where they're going to be organizing or placing deliveries for several different jobs over here as well. So the resource calendar just provides a quick at-a-glance view for what this contact is going to be working on with you, or any of the various different times that you and this contact are going to be touching base. Bottom left-hand corner shows you what you're going to be working on in that time frame. And then there's some additional information in here too, like the location for the contact, and if you scroll down, there's some additional details in here, like how to reach out to them and such. We've got related contacts and projects. You can always just click in here to tie this person into a specific job, or you can make those associations and estimates and schedules. But ultimately, this should give you a good idea for what that contact is going to be doing at any given time. You'll actually find similar things when you go into and take a look at some of the projects that you have in the system as well. The project overview is going to have similar things. You've got a location for the project. You've got, in this case, project details, which are estimate information, scheduling details if you guys are a pro or contractor and above. Could have change order or after payment topics in there as well. Change orders are first available in Premier or Catalyst and above. At the AIA G702 and G703 application for payment forms are available first in the corporate or Catalyst versions of ConstructionSuite and above. And of course, we'll talk on all these things as we dive into these features in a little bit more detail. But we've also got things in here as well. We've got activities and to-dos down here in the lower left and lower center fields. The bottom right corner here is going to show us all the contacts that are working on this job. So Harbin Lumber is going to be a part of Jobs House. We've got the Henderson Design Associates. They're probably going to be our architects designing the house. And of course, Steve Jobs is our fictitious client here. But all of this information comes together to show you who's participating on this job. And in the top right corner, we've got recent files as well, which in my case are just going to include an estimate and a proposal. Now, just like with the Today page, on the Projects tab, or the Contacts tab for that matter, you're going to have additional options here along the top. So we're on this project section. We've selected one job in particular, and as you move across the top, you'll see that right now we're looking at the Summary tab. For this project, you'll also have some additional information here like a workflow, which is my favorite feature, by the way. And the workflow is a wonderful tool because it's defined by the type of project that you're working on, and it provides an outline for everything that needs to go on for the job, from beginning to end. Now, these are completely customizable workflows, but you'll find a lot of really, really great starting points in these. We've got one workflow for commercial projects, one slightly smaller one for light commercial. We've got a residential workflow, a remodeling workflow. Depending on your version of ConstructionSuite, you could have green workflows and things like that as well. But they all come together in this section, and the idea here with the workflow is it provides a step-by-step outline on how you can be successful on any job under the sun. You'll find that most of these workflows also have action points associated with them as well, the little blue circles with a little play button in them. These action items would allow you to link to a specific function within the system. In this case, creating the estimate for this project is as simple as launching the action item next to the workflow item that we're working on right now, and it brings you into the estimate wizard, where you can select the type of template that you want to use with this if you're going for a predefined estimating template, or you can start completely from scratch with a blank estimate and then click next. It allows you to pick from a number of different things, apply your tax rates and everything like that as well as you're going through this process. And the other nice part to this as well, as you're filling in the details for these, there's also going to be an area where you can set your sales tax, and that sales tax is determined by the country that you set up when you were first installing ConstructionSuite, or if you need to go back in and change it, that's in the Tools menu here in ConstructionSuite as well if you go to Company Information. So when you set up your company there, it's going to change the sales tax that's available. If you're in the United States, could be materials or service taxes. If you're in Canada and potentially Australia as well, it's going to be GST, PST, HST, things like that. And again, there's just some of these additional options that you guys will be able to work with, and it's all going to be based on the settings that you guys have already configured. Now, the nice thing about this workflow is not only does it outline everything that you need to do in order to accomplish this job, you can also check off each of the items as you're doing it, and you'll watch the progress that's being made here, and everything that you're entering in this section is going to be available to you when you take a look at the project history. It's going to show you which workflow items were done, when they were done, which job it was that they were completed for, and if you right-click on the column headers, you can turn on some additional fields like who did that. And I can leave the project number off in this case, but you can see that I'm the one who's actually been going through and checking off most of these items. You'll also notice that in ConstructionSuite, this job has a history for the weather conditions here. So you'll notice down the left-hand side, it's going to be keeping track of these weather conditions. There's a lot of them. Of course, you can see where sometimes we have nice days, sometimes slightly less so. And now we're down into things like submittals being created and relationships being created and then more weather. In this project history, you'll also be able to post notes to the project. So if there was a discussion on a change order or something like that, you can log it as a note in the job itself. And you can clear up some of the information in this history as well just by clicking on the little options section and turning on or off various different visible history types. So right now I don't have anything turned on, but if we wanted to go through and just show the notes that we've posted and maybe the workflow items that are being completed, you could check off those too, and everything else becomes hidden. And then all you'll have to see is your workflow items and the notes that you guys are working with. Otherwise, as you're going through the system itself, you'll be able to see a full history for everything involving the job. And then from here, you can also flip over to some of the additional tabs like the Correspondence Overview, which, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be something that's a little bit more specific for the commercial product family, where you can log submittals, transmittals, RFIs, change order requests, and things like that. Back to the job itself, you'll also see an area where you can log insurance information specific for this project. This might be, project-specific bonds maybe, or warranties for the job. You can always put those in on this section as well. There's also going to be an area here for project files. And the project files is a really great area for you to just drag and drop content into your jobs. So if you've created projects and you've got something on your desktop that you need to pull into this project, you don't have to try to import it or upload it or anything like that. You literally just left click and hold it from the desktop and drag it into this little area right here under project files, and it'll store that file for you as well. So just pull in everything that you guys need to keep in the system and you'll find it all here. If you ever try to delete something from this, it'll show up under the deleted files tab, and this is basically your trash can or your recycling bin. If you find something that you don't need anymore, you can always click on it and then permanently delete the file. It'll verify that that's really what you want to do, and then you'll be in the clear. In this case, that's all of those. And the next section over, the last of all the different options along the top on the Projects tab, is your archived projects. Now in ConstructionSuite, you're going to be working with a number of different things. When you go to the All Projects screen, it's going to show you all of your active projects that you're working on at any given time. If you go to Opportunities, this is going to show you all of your active opportunities that you're working on at any time. If you ever have one of these opportunities or one of those projects become no longer active, maybe it's a project that you closed out or it's an opportunity that the client has decided not to do quite yet, you can always right-click on one of these and archive the project, and that way it pushes that archive project over into a completely separate area in the system that's not going to clutter up your list here. So keep it clean and archive everything as it's done. If you need to further clean out the system, you can always go to the Archive Projects tab and delete some of the old content as well. So plenty of different options for you guys there as you're looking through it. But please don't forget to right-click and clean up this list by archiving projects from time to time or deactivating some of these opportunities. Now it looks like we've got another question that's come through. Give me a moment to just scan through it. All right, a question in here pertains to some of the files that we were talking about dragging and dropping into the system earlier. So they've got, for this particular customer, they've got large graphic files with proposals and drawings. The question is there a maximum storage capacity for the system? And since we're talking about ConstructionSuite, the answer is no. ConstructionSuite can handle anything that you can pull into the system. The only storage restrictions that you might have for ConstructionSuite are going to be on your computers themselves. ConstructionSuite is going to be a locally installed program or a server-based program. So if you install it onto a server that only has 10 gigabytes of storage space free, you might run into a problem here or there. But if you guys have a server that's in the terabytes of free space range, chances are you're going to be in the clear for many, many years. So again, the only restriction that you're going to have is any restrictions on your own hardware or your hosting options, so keep that in mind. This is, however, one of the reasons that we also have available within ConstructionSuite the ability to right-click and export projects or opportunities as small database files. This is, in effect, creating a backup of just one little project. If you right-click and you export it as a UDA database file, that project's contents all exist in this one tiny little file that you can save on a D drive or a data drive or an external hard drive or something like that. And after you do that, then you can archive and delete this from the system if space is a concern. If space is not a concern, stick with the archiving. Just archive whatever it is, and that way you can pull it back easily. If you do need to keep it lean on your server, then you can right-click and export those. Under the data menu, you can just import them back if you ever need to recover a project. All right, so that's most of the projects in the contacts. Once again, whenever you're pulling in that information, for the contacts, you can sync with things like QuickBooks or Outlook. You can also import contacts back on the contact screen in this little drop-down menu. There's a CSV format. If you've got an Excel spreadsheet, you can just try to pull that in. If you want to see what the format is supposed to look like, you can create a template using the Outlook or Google export options here. These will export the Excel spreadsheet that has the format that you guys will need, or rather it's a CSV file, which is comma-separated file, but I always open those in Excel, so it's close enough. But when you export that file, it'll show you all the different column headers that you need, so you could just put your information in there, The order for those columns doesn't matter. Just so long as the column headers are there and the information is in that estimate, or in that Excel spreadsheet rather, you're good to go and import away. So that's a lot of the information, the heavy lifting for this. So let's take a moment to step through creating a contact and a project, and in this case we're going to go ahead and pull in the calendars and to-dos as we start to create activities and appointments for them. Now at the very beginning, when you first log into ConstructionSuite, again, it takes you right here to the Today page. And from the Today page, if you're working with a new contact or a lead, I recommend that you just come straight to that section down here on the left-hand side. And with each of these sections, you'll find a new lead or a new contact button in the top left-hand corner. Now, when you're putting together this contact for the first time, the more information that you enter into this particular screen, the more well-rounded it's going to be. The information that you're entering here into the contacts with the lead information screen is also going to be used to fill out contracts and proposals and other reports and everything like that too. So be as thorough as you can, just so that you don't end up leaving anything out. This would include address information, and if you look through my system, you'll find that all of my projects and all of my leads are at 2272 Moores Mill Road. That's where we are, by the way, if you're ever interested in stopping by for a visit. email.com. All right. So this is the basic details for the lead themselves. Basic contact information, reach out to them again in the future. For the lead, though, we want to keep track of things like status, of course. If this is a lead, they're open. The value for the lead is an arbitrary number that you guys are going to be coming up with. Maybe not too arbitrary, maybe it's a good guesstimate. But this would be your expected value for this particular lead. If they come to you and they say that they're doing a mid-range kitchen, and your typical mid-range kitchen is $70,000, then this is probably what you should put in for the lead value, $70,000. If your average project is $250,000, you want to put that in, then so be it. If you guys work in the $7 million range, that's great too. But whatever this is, it should be as close to an accurate valuation for this particular lead as you can get. This number could potentially change at a later date. You'll also have things like probability that they'll close. You've got a lead stage in the pipeline that you can keep together. You've got referrals that you can track and lead sources, which this could be a varied list that you're working with. Could be newspaper ads or commercials. We've had clients that have posted video channels on YouTube. We've got people who have done small segments on things like HGTV, whatever it might be. Put them in here. It could be your website or anything, and those sources would be used for reports again later to make sure that your marketing dollars are being channeled in the right direction. There's also some additional fields in here like lead owner or sales rep or sales agent that you guys can keep track of. There's also going to be a section in here where you can schedule events. Now, these scheduled events are typically going to be things like callbacks and our follow-up meetings with the leads, and you can automate a lot of this by stepping into the scheduled events section and clicking on options. This allows you to determine how far in advance you'd like most of these reminders and callbacks to go. So in my case, most of my reminders are going to happen for lead and opportunities about 14 days after I open the lead. Because I opened this lead today for Lisa Simpson, my forecast date is the 14th of March. My next callback should be tomorrow. I like to touch base with them relatively quickly if I can, and then the expiration date is about 2 months out. So this lead should not expire until, the tail end of April or the beginning of May. So it automates some of those, but you can always come in and change these dates later as well. And this will just automatically create appointments for you on the calendar, but you can see these activities down here in the lower left-hand corner. At least one of them. I've got my activities, my recent activities section limited to about a 2-week window, so I can see a week in the past and a week in the future as my activities to pay attention to here. You can always adjust that too in the Tools menu. If you go to Construction Suite Options, just in case you guys want to take a look through. Now you'll also have things like the to-do list. I don't have any to-dos on here yet, but if I want to go ahead and organize a presentation package for Lisa Simpson, I might go ahead and create my to-do. And in here you could just create a new to-do, click on the link. And this will add it to my to-do list. And the to-do list and your calendar activities are going to be syncing up to all of your other systems in the real time. So whenever I create this to-do for Lisa Simpson, or for myself to do on this job, that's going to sync up to ConstructionOnline, which now means that I can actually check that to-do off on my phone through the on-site to-dos app. You'll also be able to assign them out to other people as well. So if in this particular to-do I decide to assign it to Kyle, my colleague here in the office, I can click on the little assigned resource, assign it to Kyle, and now it'll show up on his to-do list as well. Anybody outside of the office can also be related to this one. Here, Lisa is associated with it, so she's going to be getting notifications regarding this particular to-do. It'll show up on her to-do list as well. And again, the idea here is, if you set it up here, everybody in the outside world can see it. If you have SuiteLink, which is one of the total care features available in Construction Suite. SuiteLink is what allows you to connect your Construction Suite software, here what we're looking at, with the outside world. And that way, if you're using SuiteLink, you can create something here and then view it on your phone at the job site. Or you can create it on the job site and it will automatically appear here. This is what a lot of my clients do when they're working with field personnel that are in rather distant job sites or job locations. Rather than putting all the notes together and driving a few hours to get to the main to your office to hand off all of their content and their to-dos and their notes and everything like that, a lot of it just gets created here in Construction Suite, automatically syncs up to online, and automatically shows up on their phone, where they can then put in notes or check things off, and then that information comes back to Construction Suite as complete. So a tremendously beneficial tool because it could save hours and hours of time. You don't have to worry about all that additional information as well. Now, of course, that's all for contacts. We've just created Lisa Simpson. She is our lead. To create a new job for Lisa, you just need to come back to the lead list, right-click on that lead, and there's going to be an option to create an opportunity for the lead right here. Now, when you're creating an opportunity from a lead, it's going to try to pre-populate as much of the information as it can based on that lead's detail. Of course, it selected the client, Lisa Simpson, used her address information for this job's address information. If you want to stick with that, you certainly can. And then you'll be able to go through and assign an opportunity name or a project name and a project type. Now, I mentioned earlier that you guys have the ability to unlock this tremendous tool called a workflow. Your workflows are part of the Premier and Catalyst versions of Construction Suite and above, but they are based on the type of project that you select right here. And that's why this is one of the mandatory fields, is we're going to try to force you guys to use a good organization scheme, and most of your project types that you'll be selecting in this case are going to be based on the types of jobs that you guys do. I've worked a lot recently with, two different types of companies, really. We've got, on the commercial side, I've worked with a lot of people who do manufacturing plants for large-scale commercial companies. But the work that they're doing is not building new manufacturing plants, but they get in there and they install new conveying systems for these plants. So they worked with one of the beer bottling companies here nearby, a brewery, and set up the whole thing for them. So the interior of the building got gutted. They put in all this stuff, and it was a great project. But that would be one of the project types that they would create. Would be interior conveying systems or something. It could be beer bottling. On the other side, I've worked with a lot of remodelers as well, who might go in there and just do like residential remodeling projects. So it could be kitchens, bathrooms, basements, things like that. So you could have those as your project types as well. Bathroom could be in the list. Kitchen could be in the list. We've got guys that go out and build theme parks, so that might be in the list. If you're working for various different doctor's offices or veterinary clinics or something like that, or dentists, you could put those in as your project types. The project types, though, again, help to outline, what do we do, a tenant improvement? So I'll treat that as a light commercial project. But again, they outline the workflows for you. And that way you'll be able to see exactly what kind of progress is being made on these jobs. So Tremendous tool for not only keeping up with things yourself. I have a tendency to forget things from time to time unless I have a clear outline of what's going on and the occasional reminder which the system will provide. But you'll also be able to go back in and see what other people are doing to help these projects progress. And as we're moving those through, if anybody ever needs a little bit of time off, handoff becomes really easy. Somebody decides to go on vacation, you don't have to go in and call them up and figure out where they left off with a job. All you have to do is go flip over to the workflow, see what they've checked off. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, it also tends to be a really great tool as well for the literal handoff on the job. Sales teams and the estimators might come in here and put together the first section where they get all of the planning and proposal done, at which point there might be a meeting with the client to finalize the proposal, sign the contract packages and everything, and hand it off to the project management and supervision team. At this point, everything in the top section of the workflow should be checked off and completed. We should be able to set up a packet or a job site binder based on the information that's been created, and then we can move on to pre-construction, which is planning and generating schedules and things like that. Now, before I dive into too much more, there is a question here, and I'll just read this off for you guys. It's how do the to-dos correspond to the scheduling versus punch lists, if at all? Okay, it looks like they're just trying to figure out if there's any connecting piece between a to-do and a scheduled task and a punch list item, which is a great question. And give me just one moment. I need to take another sip of water before I cough on you guys. All right, pardon me there, guys. All right, so the to-dos, your to-do list, is designed to be a collection of one-off items. Those one-off items are going to be things like don't forget to clean up the job site, pick the kids up from band camp, or just stop off and renew our membership to NAHB or NARI. These would be examples of some of the to-dos that you might put together. Some of them can be very project specific, some of them maybe less so. The workflow, which is somewhat similar to your to-do list, but very much more structured and has action items associated with it. Your workflow is going to be your roadmap for getting from the beginning of a job to the end of the job successfully. Your punch list, which is a feature available only on ConstructionOnline, unless you guys are using one of the templates here, but your ConstructionOnline punch list is going to be something that you would do either as a closeout for each of your trades, a closeout on your project between you and the client, or maybe just a way to organize everything that you guys need to get together for each of your jobs. I've seen a lot of people that will go through and use the punch list section not as a deficiencies list, but instead as an outline for the scope for anybody that they might be working with, and that way you can just keep your list, your checklist of items together for a punch list, and maybe take pictures or before and after shots for anything that needs to happen on the job. Tremendous tool, has a mobile app that ties into it as well. Really have a lot of fun with those. Your to-do list also has a mobile app that ties into it. Your workflow is only going to be available from within the office though. So this is one of the difference between the three pieces. Workflows are in office only, punch lists are online and mobile app only, to-dos are available in all of these areas. The to-do list though is going to be very different than your schedule, and we'll talk about the schedules here in just a couple of moments, but your schedule is going to be kind of like the workflow is to doing the project in your office. The schedule is going to be how the project gets completed in the field. So it talks about, all the different steps from framing through, actually for some of the jobs, if it's new construction, you might be starting with your general requirements, then you'll get into site clearance, and then, foundation, and then framing, and then doors and windows, whatever is involved. But it's going to map it all out, and it's using, in ConstructionSuite, it's an Gantt chart scheduling system called OnPlan that literally provides a roadmap from start to finish on the job site, which includes predecessor relationships between tasks, resource assignments so that you can see who's doing the work. You can put in lead times and lag times and all this other thing, but it's all about mapping out the time taken on the job so that you don't waste any. Time is the biggest source of money strain for most companies, time and labor, that is. So if you can control that better with a Gantt chart scheduling system like OnPlan, which can be published online as well, then you're taking huge steps towards preventing money loss on any of your jobs. So highly recommended. Keeps everybody in the know and moving in the right direction, and it saves you guys from any kind of pain or heartache in finishing your jobs on time. So those are the big differences. To-dos are one-off items to remind you to get something done. Your workflow is going to be your in-office process. Your schedule is going to be your job site process. And then the punch list is going to be the closeout to make sure that everything's done right. Follow-up question on this. Is the To-Do mobile application available for Apple? Can't seem to find it in the App Store. Well, that's unfortunate. It is available. It's going to be an Android and iOS app. You should be able to search for on-site to-dos, and that should make it available to you either through the Google Play Store if you're an Android user, or if you're an iPhone user, it's going to be the App Store. You'll probably find several other ones as well. If you just search for UDA Technologies, you guys will probably find on-site logging and punch list and plan room and things like that as well. We've designed each of the apps so that you can download the ones that are most appropriate for you and the type of work that you do. But each of those apps has like a little main menu that allows you to dive directly into each of the other pieces too as you're using them. But Rachel will actually cover most of this as we dive into ConstructionOnline. What I want to do now though is we've got a client, we've got a contact in the system. We talked about putting together a project. At any given time, by the way, if you don't have a contact yet for the job and you want to create your projects from scratch, you can do that right here as well. So you've got a new project here. And it's similar to the new contact. It just takes you through this brief little wizard where you put in some of the details and so on and so forth. But ultimately, you'll have new contacts and new projects, and they're pretty easy to get together. When you take a look at these projects, we go back into the Simpson tenant improvement job, there's a clean slate. We don't have anything for the job other than the lead. There's Lisa. Don't have any activities or to-dos or recent files or anything like that. So if you want to go ahead and start scheduling meetings and appointments to talk to various different people, you can come to the calendar section here in ConstructionSuite. There's a calendar tab over on the left-hand side. And this takes you into your company-wide calendar where you can see everything that's going on for the entire company. Now on this, most of my information is going to be organized or color-coded by project. So the Stokes office, for example, is here in gray. I've got the KB real estate project, that's going to be here in green. And most of my tasks that are showing up in blue are just standard tasks for me. Lead callbacks, follow-up calls, there's a submittal up here as well that I need to get done. So you'll have a good mix. Most of the green tasks, because they've got the little calendar pull tab, they look like they're going to be coming from schedules in ConstructionSuite. You'll also have some that have the little milestone marker or the diamond on them. These are also scheduled events. Other ones like the stars, this is going to represent a lead callback. There's going to be correspondence up here, and there could be other activity types as well. But at any given time, you can just double click on one of these days to open up a new activity, and creating new activities here is exactly like you might do it in Outlook or in Google's calendar apps or anything like that. You put in a subject line, you've got an area where you can put in a location. You can choose to make this an all-day event, meaning it has to happen over the course of today, or you can pick a specific time for the event. Again, much better for meetings and appointments this way. And then you can, of course, assign it to various different people within the organization or outside of them. You can relate it to people outside of your company here. And there's an area where you can set up reminders in this portion as well. The reminders are going to be wonderful tools for going through and selecting who you want to have involved in this and making sure that they get email or text message reminders about that. You can also set up meetings that become recurring events just by coming in here and saying that I want this meeting to happen every week on Tuesday at whatever time. You'll be able to come in and set them up here. There's your time up top. So again, creating your new activities and appointments and everything like that should be extremely straightforward and very easy. It also, once again, syncs up to ConstructionOnline, where you can then see through your mobile apps on-site calendars all the different activities and meetings and appointments and everything like that that you guys have. So make sure that you pick that up and take a look at it. It's an amazing tool for making sure that everybody can see what the company is doing at any given time. This that I'm looking at right now is my month view. Of course, with the month view, you can also filter it down to specific projects or contacts, contact groups, if you wanted to see where all the electricians are going to be at a given time. You'll also be able to sift this down into a week view that just shows this week in review. There's a day view. It shows you everything you got going on today, and then down on the bottom portion, it'll show you what your schedule looks like for today. As you move over to the list view, you can set up a custom view where you can choose a different time frame for the view that you have right now, and it kind of gives you that Gantt feel to it here. And then on the year view, this is a great little addition that we've made here recently to show you how active the company is going to be at any given time. It kind of functions as a bit of a heat map. So as you plan out several different projects and you start assigning activities out to different people, you'll notice that the colors for those days are going to change based on how packed that day is. The closer to red the day is on the calendar here on the heat map, the more you have going on. The closer to green, the less you have going on. If there's nothing on the day, that means there's nothing on the day. So no color means an absence of activity. The darker greens are going to be very light activity. The darker reds are going to be heavy activity, and you can see how the colors progress from start to finish. Okay. So, we've got a lot of the information and activity here, and just as a quick reminder, you can always sync up this information from ConstructionSuite to ConstructionOnline automatically, from ConstructionSuite to Outlook through the Sync Center, which is available up here in the data menu. Works for activities, to-dos, calendar, events, contacts, and things like that as well. So you'll be able to see most of that information in here. And any appointments or meetings that you create, again, show back up here in the project, and as you start to build out those activities and those meetings and appointments, you'll see them showing up down here in the bottom left hand corner. To-dos will show up down here in the middle, and then at this point you can step into the workflow and just start checking things off as you get them done. As soon as we have a project, which we do now, we can check that off. If there's a client associated with it, and there is, then you can go ahead and check off entering the client contact information. At this point, if you have a set of plans, you can always just check off the option to review those plans and start generating your takeoff at this portion. The generate takeoff option, by the way, for ConstructionSuite users alone, will launch the dimensions portion where you're doing all the measurements and everything like that. If you wanted to link it to an outside takeoff program, we've got almost a dozen partners now that we've been working with for years, rather, like PlanSwift and eTakeoff and SoftPlan, Chief Architect, AutoCAD, Revit, CAD Soft and Visioneer, tons of others as well. So if you guys ever wanted to go through and use one of those, you can link it directly to the project here in the workflow. Just edit the item and link it to the program, you'll be all set. Which, by the way, you can do through the right-click menu. Right-click, edit workflow item, and there's an option to link it into a program from there. So at this point, though, we're going to be on the Create Estimate step. And as I mentioned earlier, clicking on this action item will launch the estimating wizard. And from the estimate wizard, you can select a predefined template if you'd like. And these predefined templates can be one of a number of different types. In ConstructionSuite proper, when you first get started with the program, you guys should have several templates available. In this case, depending on your location, you could have imperial templates that use feet and inches and things like that, versus metric, which use meters and centimeters and so on. You'll see the little indicator there for which one's which. You'll also find for most versions of ConstructionSuite, you'll have, in the very least, the residential master and the remodeling master templates. Most of you will also have electrical masters, landscaping, mechanical, plumbing, stuff like that. So if you guys ever do any specialty work, you can take a look at those. For those of you who also work on the commercial side, you'll have, in addition to the residential package, you'll find the commercial and light commercial master templates. We'll also include the CSI 16 division and the CSI 50 division templates as well. So plenty of different estimates to work from. And the idea with most of these templates is they provide a very solid outline that people have been using right out of the box for years. But you can always go into and add a little bit of flavor of your own. Change around some of the category names or add in your own coding structure or something like that if need be. Now in my case, I've opened up an estimate, which is the residential sample, just because there's pricing information available in here. And we'll talk about how to configure these various different estimate templates tomorrow as we dive into estimating and reporting. But for the moment, I'm just going to give you a brief overview on estimating so that you guys can know what to expect. We'll generate a proposal from this estimate so that you can see how that process is going to work. Maybe even put together a schedule from this one as well. And that way you guys can kind of see how each piece lends information to the next piece so that you don't have to duplicate any double entry whatsoever. So to begin with, we have the overview for the estimate here. This is the project totals page, which is your summary sheet. And on this summary sheet, you can find each of the different categories that we've got here, like planning and foundation and framing, exterior windows and doors. Each of these categories has a tab down here along the bottom. And also on the bottom, there's a quick shortcut to get back to the project totals page at any time. It's always going to be there. Now, if you ever wanted to click into and start updating some of the pricing for any of these sections, all you have to do is click into the category or subcategory that you're going to be working on. Category in this case is going to be foundation. My subcategory might be site work. And from the site work subcategory, you can flip it back and forth between lump sum or detailed to itemize everything that's going to be involved. Lump sum is really more of a, we've got a package price for what we're working with, so let's just put in that package price. Now, putting in the information is going to be very straightforward. You've got quantity columns, you've got cost columns, there's a unit column in here to work with, and these are very standard things. You'll also find a labor or a classification portion in this as well, which is going to be your labor costs, your material costs, subcontractor costs, equipment, and other. So you can assign one of these here. And as you assign these classifications to your total prices for each of these different items, you'll find that the estimate summary section over on the right hand side is going to give you a breakdown of cost by classification to give you a running total on how you're doing on the job. So the summary section over on the right hand side should always be a quick scorecard for this. You can always come over here and take a look at how much you guys have broken down your costs by category or by classification or by type, which would be estimates and allowances and options. Later on, as you start assigning resources, which would be another one of the fields that's available here in the estimate, you can also get a cost breakdown by resource over here on the right hand side as well. Now, one of the other options that you'll see showing up, or one of the other additions to the system, is this RSMeans cost data search function. So if you're looking for a specific item and you don't know what the price of it is, you can always just click into this and type in what you're looking for. When you pull up the search, it's actually going to open up the cost book for you, and it's going to take you to some of the closest hits for those. If you're looking for something like a vent fan for a bathroom, you could just look up a vent fan. And it'll pull up a few that are probably pretty close to what you're looking for. It's a pretty intelligent search as well, so just get close and it'll get you the rest of the way there. You'll also be able to choose from any of the different cost books that are available to you here as well, and these cost books are going to be your own custom cost books. They're going to be residential cost books or repair or remodeling cost books. Those are going to be available in all versions. For those of you who are also doing the commercial work, if you guys purchase the light version of ConstructionSuite, you will have the light commercial cost book. If you guys went with contractor or above, you'll also get BCCD. And if you guys went with at least the Catalyst version of ConstructionSuite or above on the commercial side, we'll throw in the commercial cost book with assemblies. Now, I had a conversation with somebody the other day on the differences between these cost books. Ultimately, it starts with the two different divisions. Back in 1995, the Commercial Specifications Institute, or CSI, released a 16-division structure for pricing out most of the information, and you'll see that each of the cost books will have a 16-division copy of that cost book. The items found in that 16 division are the exact same as the items that are found in the 50 division, and the 50 divisions is the revision that they made in 2004, I think, was when they first made that revision. But they created this larger categorization structure so that everything is broken down into a little bit greater detail. Now, you'll have both copies for each cost book that you have. We won't break up your own cost books like that, but you can use any of the RSMeans by default. The items that are going to be found within these are obviously going to be very specific to the cost book that you use. If you open up a residential cost book, it's going to be very residential heavy item sets. If you open up the commercial cost book with assemblies, there's going to be a lot of commercial specific stuff. Some of it can even be very specific to things like high rises or something like that. You could be doing framing with metal I-beams and so on. Residential cost book isn't going to have those, so that one might be focused a little bit more on the residential side. Or with repair remodeling, you can do tear outs and rebuilds and things like that. But ultimately, you would have access to any of these cost books, and you can always use each of them to provide the items that you need based on a cost book company that's been around for decades, providing pricing information across all of North America. So great tools in there to work with. And if you want to go ahead and pull them in, search for your item, insert it when you find it. If you don't want to use those, you can always put the information together manually or create cost books based on this, based on your estimates. Again, we'll talk about the cost books in a little bit greater detail tomorrow as we dive into those. For now, I want to make sure that you guys have the basics here for your estimates. So you've got categories like foundation, subcategories like footers, materials, and line items like excavation and anchor bolts, form boards. each of the subcategories has a subcategory type. It's a subcategory of allowances or a subcategory of estimated costs, or maybe it's an option. Change orders come later and are only available in Premiere and Catalyst and above. But again, you can choose how you want to calculate this. It can either be a detailed subcategory or a lump sum subcategory. Put in your pricing information, select your classifications, and you've got a total cost for the job. Now I say a total cost because what we're missing from this estimate right now is the company overhead margin. So if we flip back to the project totals page, you get a summary of how much each of these subcategories and categories will cost you to build the job. When you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll find a company overhead and margin section, which allows you to put in margin numbers or markup numbers to come to a selling price for this job. So if you click into the company overhead and margin at this point, you can put the values in here for your percentages. Now I find that most construction companies fall under one of two umbrellas. You're either going to be doing cost plus contracts, which are literally you're going to take the cost and you're going to add a markup percentage to it, and if it costs more than you originally thought, fine, the client's going to pay. If it costs less, then you don't charge your client as much. But either way, it's your cost to do the job plus a percentage markup. Now the other camp is fixed fee, and that's going to be the people who put together a contract at the beginning of the job that says we're going to do this job for X amount of money. And you try to stick to that as closely as you can. If you end up going over, you've got to eat that cost unless it's change orders. Change orders, of course, that's the wild card that everybody's got to deal with. And we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow and a lot more detail on Friday as we talk about the online change management. So we'll get back to that one later. But your initial costs to do the job plus your company overhead margin would give you a fixed contract amount, and that's what you're signing with the contract. So if you're doing one of these two types of project, when you're putting together your initial estimate here and you price out everything for the job itself, you're going to be putting in your company's overhead and profit numbers. And if you're cost plus, I find that most people use the percent of costs number, and that percent of costs number is going to affect the overall project value by adding 20% to the subtotal for the job to come up with a new grand total. The subtotal for the job was $365. 20% of $365 is $73,000. So you add that to $365 to give you a new $439 total number. And that's if you're doing a 20% markup based on for your overhead or something like that. Now, if you were to do fixed fee contracts, I find most fixed fee builders, at least the ones that are using ConstructionSuite, tend to go with a percent margin instead. And the margin calculation pulls from a different number entirely. Rather than saying, here's the subtotal, we're adding 20%, and our new grand total is going to be this, it's going to say, here's the grand total, we're taking 20% out of that grand total to cover our overhead expenses, and whatever's left is going to become the cost of doing the job. I know it seems a little bit backwards, but if you actually take this number and add the percent margin, the number becomes very easily evident when you look at the fact that a 20% margin is, first of all, higher, which is good, but it's 20% of your project total, which is being set aside for the company overhead margin. So 20% of 457 is going to be 91,463. And that's the part that's getting set aside for your company's overhead expenses, or in my case, we might break it down a little bit more into like a 10% overhead and an 8% profit margin and a 2% contingency. You're still setting aside 20% of the contract value to go towards covering your company's cost of doing business and so on. So margin is always going to be based on the overall contract value. You're setting aside a percentage of the contract to cover your margin. If it's percent of costs, you're adding to the cost of the job to come up with a new grand total. So again, it's just the number that you're comparing against. And if in doubt, if you guys do fixed fee contracts, chances are you need to use percent margin. If you're doing cost plus, odds are you're going to need to use percent of costs. So just compare the numbers that you get using your selected type to the numbers that you're accustomed to using and see what it gets you. Now, of course, the upside to this is now we've got an estimate where it's got a grand total, and we can start working with this. Next step in this process will typically be to create a proposal for your customer. So you've got an estimate, we've got pricing information, some of it is the company overhead and margin, and in this case, you can come to the Reports tab and open up the Proposal Wizard to get started with a proposal for your client. Now, in the proposal wizard, you're going to have several different options for what kind of job it's going to be and which template you want to use and so on. My best recommendation is to just go through and take a look at the options that are available and find the one that fits you best. Because of all the different options for running these proposals and everything like that, you'll have tons and tons of options. The right one is there. You just got to find it. Now, for this particular template, I'm going to go ahead with the commercial template set. We'll verify the address information and project information. This is the first part that you'll start to see that integration option coming into play. Because this is a fully integrated system, the contact that I entered in is going to use all that contact information to populate my proposal. The job information, which was also entered in, is going to populate the proposal as well with all the project-specific info for whatever we entered. If you didn't enter all the information, then you don't get that much of a benefit out of it. So remember, good information in means good information throughout the whole process. Garbage in means that you're going to get garbage out of the process. So, good information here for us to start with. If we click Next, a couple of different proposal options. I say a couple, it's 6, so more than a couple, but several different proposal options for you guys to pick from here. And you'll notice that the previews are all layout changes. So in this first one, for example, the header information for the contact and the project and our company is going to show up just straight down in the list. Next one over, it might have our contact or our company information, and then the contact's information, and then project details underneath, and so on, scattered around for option 3. So I'm going to go with custom option 1. This is basic information about the job, general scope of work, and special conditions or exclusions for the job. If you put these in the project wizard, you'll have them here. If you didn't put them in the project wizard, go ahead and enter them here. When you click Next, just general information about the job, including allowances. You can keep those as a separate section so that you can see how much, or show the client how much they're going to spend on various different headings. The next page is your dimension set based on the type of project that you're working with, and on the next page, this is the real meat of the proposal. So when you're putting together an estimate, you've got all of the different detail in the estimate for your various different categories and the items and everything like that that you're going to use. But when it comes to presenting the information, you've got several different options in here. First, on the very top of the report, it's going to ask you how you want to provide the pricing information, most specifically the company overhead and margin. Now, I'm the kind of guy that knows that the cost of doing a job well is going to be what it is. It's just, I have my price that we attach with everything. If the customer wants to nitpick this, maybe they're not the best customer for me. So I don't even want to have the conversation about price. So you'll have the option in this case to prorate your company overhead and margin into all the categories, so it just builds the cost right in. You still get to see it broken out, but when your customer looks at the numbers, they see lump sum numbers that include the built-in overhead, profit margin, and contingency numbers. So I love that option. Want to make sure that we include that when we're doing the proposal. Down below this, you're going to have different options for having estimated costs and sales tax and line item markups and everything like that built into your total cost that you're presenting to the client. Of course, I want to do this. What I don't want to do is have individual line item total costs on there. I don't want my client to go in there and see how much we're spending on 2x4s, because then they might try to go out to the store and buy their own, and that kind of defeats the purpose. If I'm going to manage the job, I just want to take care of the job. So we have an option in here to hide the line item total costs as well. We'll still have category totals in there though, so they can see how much we're spending on framing and how much we're projecting to spend on foundations and windows and doors and what have you, without showing the individual costs for each of the line items. So I love that option too. And then it's just a matter of preference for everything else. If you estimate by room, you can always use the room column in the estimate, and then you can include subtotals by room or by phase. There's notes that you can include in here as well. If you choose to include the notes, then they'll show up in line. And ultimately, when you find that sweet spot, it'll remember your settings, and then all you have to do is click Finish. And up she goes. So what you might have noticed about OnCost, the estimating system here, is it's designed to be somewhat similar to Excel. It's kind of got that workbook feel to it, and each of the worksheets has their own different costs broken down and everything like that. We've got project totals, which is the summary page, and the company overhead and margin, which is the last page there in the workbook. Which we'll find with OnPoint, which is the proposal generation tool and the reporting tool, this is designed to be like Microsoft Word. To the point that anything that you would typically do in Word, you'll be able to do that here in ConstructionSuite's OnPoint system as well. Let's go insert a page break, just to make it look a little cleaner for me. But yeah, as you're looking through, you can see, I've got it set up so that it automatically inserts a header for us. We've got all of those AutoDoc fields that are putting together all the information, like our company name and our company address information. I don't use a company fax, so let's just go ahead and right-click and delete that field. And then we've got some of the other basic information in here as well. Some other stuff that we can clean up a little bit. Let's get rid of that row in the table. Keep it clean. And as you scroll down from the proposal, we've got base price includes. Didn't have any allowances, so we've just got some of the additional information in here to work with. But then just kind of gives you a breakdown on costs. Here's what we're doing. Here's how much the cost is for that entire section. Then for framing, we're doing all of this, and here's how much the cost is for framing. So scroll down through the whole thing, and it just gives you this nice kind of neat, clean view for everything that you're working with, and a grand total at the bottom, and then we've got an acceptance of agreement. This is an excellent little place where you could have them sign off on this as a notice to proceed or whatever you like. So from here, of course, under the File menu, you can print it off. If you want, you can go to the Page Layout tab and email it as an attachment. If you're interested, you'll also be able to export it as a Word document if you want to send it to somebody else to give it the final touches, or export it as a PDF if you want to send it through your own emailing system. Whatever it is, you'll have plenty of different options here in OnPoint. We'll talk about customizing the reports as well tomorrow as we dive into estimating and reporting. But for now, you've got a nice, clean proposal. Let's go ahead and save that into the project as well. We are working in an opportunity, and that opportunity is the Simpson Tenant Improvement, which is fairly straightforward. And at this point, we've got the estimate for it, we've got a proposal for it. Let's knock out a quick schedule for this one too, or at least the beginnings for a schedule, and then we'll just open the floor to any questions that you guys might have. Now keep in mind that we're going through the estimating and reporting relatively quickly because we're going to be covering this in much more detail, talking about setting up estimating templates and reporting templates, updating all the contracts and documents that you'll find within ConstructionSuite, and then going through and actually exploring what all the possibilities are within the system. But for now, just to give you a rough idea, on the Reports tab, you'll find basically 4 major sections. You've got project management reports, which are things like labor reports and material lists and stuff like that. On the vendor report side, you still got material lists that you can send off to a vendor to have them fill it for you, or you can send out POs and subcontractor contracts. On the customer side, you're going to have change order contracts, you're going to have allowance reports and options that you can put together for them. And then on the financials, we'll talk about this one in the QuickBooks integration webinar on Wednesday. But here you can do comparisons for estimate versus actuals, or committed versus actuals, or something like that. So great reports to work with in here, and they're all going to be found under the Reports tab in the estimate. In this case, though, we were talking about putting together a schedule, and you've really got 2 opportunities for the schedules themselves. If you come back to the File menu in this estimate, there's going to be an option within the estimate to create a new schedule. So it's right here in the File menu. Off to the right-hand side, you've got Create New Schedule. And when you create that schedule, this is where your 2 options come into play. If you're the kind of person that likes to put together schedule templates and then use that schedule template to map out a standard project, and then just go in there and adjust the start dates and the durations and everything like that for each project that you do that fits that template, then you're probably going to use this first option. Open the new schedule wizard, which allows you to go through and pick which template you want to use and continue on from there. If you're like me and you just want to go ahead and put everything into the schedule from this estimate, then you'll use the second option instead, where you can add the estimate as a framework for your schedule. This is going to take all of your categories in the estimate, like supervision and miscellaneous and planning and foundation and framing, and it's going to turn those into groups in the schedule. Anything that you had set up as a subcategory in the estimate becomes a task in that group. So if you guys will remember, in the planning section, I have design services and permits and lot costs. Those would be my tasks. Planning will be the group. So this, of course, is the option that I'm going to use. In this case, there's also going to be an option to prorate the company overhead and margin into this section. I want to take this $91,000 number and just spread it out across everything else, because in this schedule, you'll be able to do things like cash flow reports that will show you how much money you're making over a given time frame for this job, or for the company as a whole. If everyone has if every project has a schedule with pricing information built in, then you can do a company-wide cash flow report and see exactly where the money flow is going to be. So in this case, again, pick the favorite options from that particular report, and I'm running the schedule itself. It's going to put all of the information together for me, and once again, no double entry in this case. If we've got pricing information in the estimate, that's going to show up in the schedule. All the categories and subcategories become groups and tasks. If we had assigned resources, those resources would even show up in here as well. And at this point, the only thing that I need to do is go in here and link the tasks together, and then tell the system how long the task is going to take. Design services, for example, the guys that I use are pretty quick. They'll get it done in a work week. After we have the designs, then we can start applying for permits. Permits needs designs to be completed in order to begin. That would be represented by a predecessor of task ID 2. Over on the Gantt chart side, you can see that now permits is going to be starting next Monday, because that's after the end of design services. Design services ends this Friday, permits begin next Monday. That's my predecessor relationship, and it's all, again, based on the task IDs, which you'll find on the far left side. So once we get the permits, that's when we can go ahead and buy the lot that we're going to be building, if lot costs are going to be a factor in this. So again, permits come, then lot costs. So task ID 3 becomes my predecessor for lot costs. After lot costs comes financing, or however you guys want to set it up. Now you'll see this information starting to link together over on the Gantt chart itself. You can see the relationships building as we go task by task. At any given time, you can always come in here and adjust some of the pricing information, or some of the, not pricing information, some of the durations for these tasks. And all of the subsequent tasks, all of our followers, are going to update automatically. So you'll see that the lot costs and construction financing jump back. So you can always start by going through and chaining everything together as you feel is appropriate, and then you can go back through on a second pass and update all your durations just to make sure that everything's in the right place. And it's just as simple as that. Now you can make it even easier still. If you happen to like the easy options, you can always just come over to the Gantt chart side and just drag and drop tasks around as well. So this, once again, just allows you to map out how the tasks are going to link, how long they're going to take, and get it all set up like this. So getting the information in there is easy enough, and it's just a matter of scrolling through and setting up all the relationships and predecessors and everything like that, setting up your durations, and if you want, you can also zoom out a little bit to make it easier to navigate as you go through the schedule. Now, as you do complete the schedule, and you put in all the durations and everything like that, the next questions, of course, become how do we present this to our customers, and how do we share this with other people outside of the office? And we've got some great tools for you guys there, some great options. For example, once the schedule is done, you can always go to the View menu and show hide columns, just like within the estimate, and turn off some of the information that we don't need people to see. For example, if I'm printing this off to hand to the client, they don't need these price tags. So you can come down in this portion and just uncheck the option to show the total estimate in the Gantt chart side. You could also go in and turn on other things as well if you chose to, like the resources or how long it's going to take to complete the tasks, whatever it is. But once you find that, click OK, and you're all ready. So now we've got a view that looks good for the customers, and from here, you can actually send it directly to ConstructionOnline, publish this basically, and then it's going to be available online and through your client portals or subcontractor portals, so at any given time people can log in there and see it. I really love this idea too, because if you push the schedule to ConstructionOnline, your field personnel can actually go online and see where the schedule stands at any given time, or more importantly, project management and site supervision can be done from the job site. They can update the schedule so that you can see exactly where the job stands in real time, and everybody else who's checking in through the portals or receiving some of the notifications from online or GamePlan will be able to see the adjusted schedules in real time. You don't have to worry about any miscommunications or somebody who goes into and updates this schedule and forgets to send it out or anything like that. It's a thing of the past. You don't have to worry about it. Just keep it all online and live, and you guys are all set. So that's my preference. There's going to be other options in here as well. You can always export it to a MS Project or one of the other scheduling systems. You can export a PDF or an image if you wanted to. You'll also be able to just print it directly from here as well. Use some of the various different printing settings in here if you guys are interested. But tons of different options and possibilities. So if you go through and you get everything set up and most of the details come together, go ahead and pick your preferred option for sharing it with the outside world and use it. But don't forget as well that you always need to save these schedules. You can set up autosave, but I prefer to just save it as I go so that I don't end up messing something up and then getting stuck with the auto-saved version of me monkeying around with the schedule. But in this case, as you go through, you save it. It also becomes available on the calendar as well, so now you can see all of this work as it fits into the company as a whole. And you can see that at any given time. It's also going to take advantage of the fact that that company calendar is available, because now if you want to go through and start assigning people to work on some of these tasks, again through the right-click menu. I'm going to be using that right-click menu all the time, and I highly recommend you guys do it too. But if you right-click and try to assign somebody to one of these tasks in the schedule, because we have access to all of that other schedule information, you'll be able to see a lot of this information over here on the right-hand side. What are they working on? Are they available at this time? Should we consider using somebody else because they're busy? Things like that. See, Baker Power, for example, his February and March is pretty booked, and you can see what kind of work he's doing up here at the top. So this would be a clear indicator to me that I might need to pull in another electrician unless Baker Power has multiple work crews. I could leave that up to him. But again, it just puts the information together and allows you to avoid resource conflicts as you guys are scheduling these things out. If you try to schedule somebody that doesn't have any kind of insurance information or anything like that, the system will notify you and give you the opportunity to get that corrected before they show up on job sites. It'll help you guys steer clear of bad resources. People, you can actually rate your resources or rate your subcontractors if they're chronically late and they never do a good job or anything like that. Maybe they become a one-star subcontractor, and the guy that's always on time and he gets things done ahead of schedule and everything like that, maybe he becomes your 5-star subcontractor. But it always helps to manage not only the projects but also the people involved in these projects as well, and you'll be able to do an amazing job of that using this on-plane scheduling system. So make sure that you take a look at this, and don't forget all of these things are going to be linked together or have the option to get linked together. So don't start off sloppy and you won't have to worry about putting it back together later. Just put together good information in here, and we'll always love to help. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop exploring all the additional features. Don't forget, we do have webinars later on this week. Tomorrow is going to be estimating and reporting. Wednesday we're going to be diving into QuickBooks integration. Thursday we're going to be doing scheduling. And on Friday we're going to pull it all together and make it all available in the cloud as we take a look at ConstructionOnline. All of the webinars are going to be starting about the same time. We're looking at about 3 o'clock Central, so if you guys can, join us for those. You can always sign up by going back to the UDA Technologies website. Take a look under support. You'll find the webinar schedule there. Most of you will also have it through the narrator as well, so take a peek there, and you guys should see the sign up area there. If you guys are interested though in getting some help before then, don't forget I will stick around for questions. If you guys have any more, I'd be happy to field those questions for you guys here for the next few minutes. Also, at any given time you can come up to the help menu. Take a look under the contact information, and you guys will find phone numbers, email addresses, and a number of other ways to reach out to myself and my team. For now, though, that's going to wrap up our webinar for you guys today. Once again, my name is Ian Schaefer, and it's been my pleasure hosting for you guys today. Hopefully, I'll have a chance to see you guys again tomorrow as well as we dive into estimating. A huge fan of the estimating system, especially love to get in there and manipulate the information and play around with the numbers and present it in a really meaningful way. So definitely join us for that if you guys have a chance. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, guys. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.